Are you ready, kids?
Well, you shouldn't be, because this video was not made for kids. Spongebob Squarepants is an anime that premiered on May 1st, 1999 and has been on the air for over 15 years. The show has taken the world by storm, being nominated for over 150 TV series awards, 16 film awards, and 39 musicals, winning over 100 of these nominations. Its lore is expansive and encapsulates both fantasy and reality, including real-world places such as Texas and the ocean, as well as top international celebrities like David Hasselhoff. It includes real locations from the past, such as Atlantis, with its own mythological hierarchy of gods. Unfortunately, this show is also a sign that the West has fallen. This anime is the most popular show on Nickelodeon, and one of the most popular animes of all time. Because of this, I have decided to do something brave and speak out against a popular franchise, with it having nothing to do with the hopes of internet clout. Hit that like and subscribe button. The world building of Spongebob Squarepants is nonsensical. I do recognize that it follows a soft magic system, similar to other anime such as Avatar and That's So Raven, and there is wiggle room here and there. But even with a soft magic system, there are limits. The most obvious and glaring problem is the underwater nature of where the story takes place. The show does an amazing job at immersing you into its story. We see normally land-focused creatures such as sandy cheeks need to adapt to the underwater life, as well as, on multiple occasions, seeing what happens to our underwater friends when they get taken out of their wet comfort zones. We'll come back to this scene a little bit later when we discuss the morality of SpongeBob, but for now, just know that there is a Luciferian meaning behind this scene. Here is where we run into an example of incoherent world building. While it is never outwardly stated just how deep Bikini Bottom is, the consensus online is that it is 80 meters below sea level. For creatures like SpongeBob, Patrick, and the rest of the gang, this isn't a problem, but that is not the case for one Sandy Cheeks. She is a mammal. The deepest that a human can go underwater without experiencing severe, even fatal health issues is around 60 meters. Sandy is much smaller than a human, and based on studies of my own feelings, that would mean she cannot go even as deep as a human, much less go past them. You might be saying to yourself, her dome or her suit is what prevents that, but there have been scenes with Sandy without her helmet or her suit on, so that does not hold water. Get it? Doesn't hold what? Moving on, the problems of them being underwater continue, and not just in minor ways, but entire episodes that seem to be centered around just breaking their own laws of the universe. There have been multiple episodes that take place on a beach. Not on the surface on a beach, but on a beach under the water. How can you have a second body of water inside another body of water? That is not how this works. Furthermore, all of these creatures need water to live. How can they drown? Yet, there is a fully fleshed out character whose sole job is being a lifeguard, and people have been shown to almost drown or even die due to drowning. We'll get into SpongeBob's morality a bit later, but I need to address this. What kind of a kids show has a character be murdered in such a gruesome way on screen? And if he turns into an angel and goes to heaven, how does a Christian theology mix in with the Atlantean mythology? Back to the underwater rules, or lack thereof. One of the most frustrating things while watching the show is that it is very much aware of these problems and these plot holes. They still don't take any measured steps to fix it. And what's worse, they occasionally openly mock the viewer with their inadequacies. In Season 2, Episode 7, Life of Crime, aired on May 5th, 2001. SpongeBob and Patrick are on the run, thinking themselves to be wanted criminals. This is the show glorifying crime, but we'll skip that for now. At one point, the characters are huddled up around a campfire. The artist even went out of their way to showcase water bubbles coming up to remind the audience that they are underwater. Finally, Patrick asked the question everyone was thinking.
Hey, if we're underwater, how could there be a...
With that single move, the writers of SpongeBob SquarePants undermined their entire premise, didn't care, mocked you for it, and moved on. That's because they knew if they acknowledged it, their entire world structure would fall apart in an instant. SpongeBob's main place of employment, the Krusty Krab, has him working as a fry cook and uses flames to heat up the patties. How can you light a fire to heat up the patties if you're underwater, SpongeBob? And how can you fry anything when the material is underwater? Do you know what happens when you mix water and hot oil? A violent explosion. Where's the explosion, SpongeBob? Why isn't your restaurant on fire? On that note, the town has a fire department that sprays water underwater to put out fires that are also underwater. This show was created by Steven Hillenburg, who was a marine biologist before he created SpongeBob. He should have been well aware of the rules of fire and water before he started this show, not to mention how easily mammals can be crushed if they try to live as marine animals, as mentioned earlier. I know some people say I take these shows too seriously, but I will not have my intelligence be insulted by a sponge! Also, I won't point to anything specific so you can't say I'm wrong, but the creator's name is Hillenburg. Hillenburg? Atlantis? There are several other inconsistencies that plague the show. For example, what does Patrick's home look like? Well, depending on the episode, you're going to get some very different answers. Is he a nomad with no material possessions outside of his own pants? Or is he a minimalist? Or does his home dig deeper into the sands, revealing a man cave? I don't know, and neither do the writers apparently. So what exactly is SpongeBob's power level? In some episodes, they showed to us that SpongeBob is almost impervious to damage. In other episodes, he is so fragile that merely tripping causes him to black out and be sent to the hospital. On the question of whether or not he can beat Goku, it is pointless to even ask at this stage because we do not have a good basis for what his power level is. Though, in my humble opinion, as someone who is merely a casual fan of DBZ, we've only been talking about just taking damage. But one of the show's consistent themes is that his physical strength is laughable. So no, he cannot defeat Goku. I don't care what your memes say. It's stupid. How is Mr. Krabs, who is a crab, a crustacean, the father of a sperm whale? They never revealed the mother, but there has never been any implication that she was adopted. And why a sperm whale, of all things? It's not just the intellectual part of my brain that SpongeBob insults. I also have a high emotional IQ, and Spongebob Squarepants is, without a doubt, one of the most immoral shows out there, corrupting our children down to their very core. I know I've personally praised shows like Shimoneta or Konosuba in the past, but I like those shows, so it is different. The first and most obvious sign of immorality comes from Spongebob Squarepants, which, by the way, his pants are not even square, they're a freaking rectangle, is that he is a constant menace to everyone around him, and a dangerous one at that. He could be abusing individuals, such as his poor and misunderstood neighbor Squidward, or his educated Mrs. Puff, both of which he has sent to the hospital and almost killed on multiple occasions. Mrs. Puff is also a hero, by the way, because she is spending all of her efforts to keep this maniac off of the streets. A maniac who tried to break up her marriage by hooking her up with his boss, no less. Her name is Mrs. Puff, you filthy sponge. Not Miss. If he's not out there destroying individuals' lives, he is destroying whole groups and communities. Whether it is the place that he works at, or the beach, or hell, he's even destroyed his entire town multiple times. He corrupts the innocent, such as manipulating mobs to attack and beat up this old man.
Can't you see he's gonna kick my butt? Hi there, young people. A nice day today.
So, you like kicking butts, do ya? Well, we'll show you, old man! There he is! Go get him!
Really, Nickelodeon? You're going to have a mob of fish beat up on an innocent elderly fish, and you don't include any, say, Alaskan blackfish? No black sea bass? No tautog, also known as the blackfish? Where's the representation? I see what you're doing, Hillenburg. We cannot forget about Mr. Krabs, who is the embodiment of late-stage capitalism, who will abuse his employees and treat them as literal slaves, all for the sake of that almighty dollar. It's only natural that he is the same color as a MAGA hat. Some of my favorite episodes is when we have a Bolshevik uprising to tear down his corporate greed. Just imagine how much better everything would be if Plankton also had the Krabby Patty formula. All of his schemes would stop right then and there. But instead, this minority-coded character has to commit crimes just to get by. Typical MAGA crustacean. The next and most damaging way that this show is corrupting our youth is by turning your children into hormone-laced sex monkeys. How do they do that? With nudity. It's everywhere you look, with whole episodes dedicated to it. Now, being involved with the anime community a lot, many people on Twitter have informed me about much I never knew in what has been dubbed the lowly debate. From this debate, I have learned that simultaneously, it does not matter how old the character looks, but what her actual age is, and that her age does not matter, but rather what she looks like. Also, a character could be both of age and look of age, but they would still be what is known as minor coded. so several characters, such as Patrick Star and SpongeBob Squarepants himself, are minor coded. This will be important moving forward. And as the rules of the internet decree, anyone who disagrees with me is a pedophile. We have many examples that we can go off from the show. So many that I was actually surprised myself. But to showcase just a few, when SpongeBob decided he wanted to live among the jellyfish, he ripped off all of his clothes, exposing his sponge junk to everyone around, including a female. We also have SpongeBob and Patrick exposing themselves for the pleasure of a viewing audience, and even touching the other for their sick fetish. The gay agenda strikes again. It's not just SpongeBob and Patrick, but the side cast too, such as Mr. Krabs. And they always make sure to let everyone know so there's no ambiguity.
Good grief, he's naked!
Here we have two characters who are standing around naked looking at each other. Here is Sandy Cheeks, looking at the chocolate starfish of a pink starfish. And in this one, we have the characters of Squidward, who is at least a 30-year-old man. In the previously mentioned Puddle the sperm whale, the 16-year-old teenage daughter of his boss, and she is, without his consent, performing sexual acts on him of the oral variety. Just look at her going so deep she's got his whole body in her mouth, literally sucking the bones right out of him. And only after post-nut clarity do these characters realize they are naked. You cannot run from your shame! And finally, the biggest tease in this entire show, Sandy Cheeks. The very first episode she is in is called Tea Time at the Tree Dome. How villainous. They chose something like tea, which only attracts good boys and girls like myself, to lure us in with their innocence and goodwill. When we first met Sandy, she is properly covered up like any good woman should be. I would have liked to see a burqa on her and cover her face up in honor of Allah, but I'll compromise, I guess. And just when you think everything is halal, or kosher as Helen Bird would like to say, SpongeBob enters her bubble, her safe space, where he is immediately put in a dangerous, life-threatening environment. And here we are, reintroduced to Sandy Cheeks, no longer properly dressed like a good Muslim Texas woman, but instead like a cheap harlot, showing off all the goods. And don't think I can't see right through you, Hillenburg. A half-naked woman named Cheeks. Sandy Cheeks. And SpongeBob is desperate for water, so SpongeBob is thirsty around Cheeks. I've made videos and posted to Twitter about media literacy. You can't get anything past me. This is a common reoccurring motif with Sandy Cheeks. Them always bringing her out, exposing her body, enticing young men, making them wonder what it would be like to be wrapped up in that warm fur of hers, seeing that athletic body, knowing how tempting this is, driving the hearts of men wild with lust and desire. It turns us all into perverts. Not me though, I'm immune to this. And finally, to wrap all of this up, the unfair, torturous treatment of the most relatable, down-to-earth character imaginable, Squidward Tentacles.
Hello?
Squidward!
Is it time already for you to ruin my day?
Huh? Is it time already to ruin Squid's day? Hey, SpongeBob, don't start without me!
Squidward is us. We just want to be left alone. We want to enjoy peace and quiet. We want to practice our sacred and noble art of clarinet. But everywhere we turn, that sponge ruins it all. He ruins our quiet solitude. He breaks into our homes. He won't even let us practice in peace. It's bad enough that the world does not recognize our talents, but we are forever trapped in this cycle. Even when Squidward tried to move away from everybody, to get away from all of these people, SpongeBob Squarepants sabotaged his attempts to escape. I feel for Squidward because I, too, am a misunderstood, underappreciated artist. Only my main craftsmanship comes in the form of making teas, and soaps, and some coffee on the side. All of which you can get at the Dragon's Treasure, a haven for anime and tea lovers. A selection of over 100 teas, 8 kinds of coffee roasted fresh per order, and over 25 handmade soap, shampoo, and conditioner bars. This business is made to help fund my own clarinet lessons, but my instrument of choice is the clarinet of my spiritual brethren in the Orient. Spend over $1,000 in my store and mention this video, and I will send you a video of me practicing this sacred instrument, setting your very soul on fire with its magnificence. So if you want to support true musical genius, as well as this channel, then you know what you need to do. All links are in the description. And with that, dear viewer, I hope that I have properly educated you on this demonic, Luciferian children's cartoon show. And I hope that you spread this message far and wide, while liking and subscribing and leaving your comments of agreement, because that is the only way we will be able to take on the globalists and break the conditioning!